Hi, and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be on a topic about which I am generally fascinated. And it's a topic that engenders a lot of sometimes heated discussion on the interwebs because I think there is a lot of butt dyno type data being used to inform people's opinions about the subject. And some of it is right, and some of it may not be correct. But I've done a fair bit of research now relating to this subject and have experimented fairly substantially with my own rig in trying out some of these things that I'm going to be bringing up, and I believe that I've got a pretty good topic that I can cover right here in a reasonable manner. And I'm not intending to, I don't point fingers at anyone, and I'm not stating this in a 100% absolute fact. This is what I believe, this is what I do. You can certainly argue with me at the end, and I welcome your comments. So, the topic that I'm going to discuss today is trailer sway. And the difference between true trailer sway and what I'm going to discuss in this video and call trailer buffeting. My definition of trailer sway is an uncontrolled wagging the dog oscillation of a towed trailer that will generally increase in severity with your towing speed after the sway starts. Sway happens to trailers that are improperly loaded with too much weight behind the axles or axle and too little tongue weight. Wind gusts and buffeting may initiate or even exacerbate sway in a poorly balanced trailer, but wind is not a cause of sway. The tendency of a trailer to move around in response to wind gusts, either natural or man-made, like passing semi-trucks, is not sway. I think it should be called buffeting. If the trailer moves when exposed to wind, but then returns to normal towing after the wind load is removed without starting to oscillate, it's not swaying. True sway can only be fixed by rebalancing the trailer with more weight ahead of the axle or axles to increase tongue load. Now, minimizing the effects of wind buffeting can be a much more complex process involving the setup of the weight distributing hitch, if used, as well as, yes, the adjustment of the anti-sway system, either integral to or in addition to the weight distributing hitch. I'll address each of these separately. First, weight distributing hitch setup. Let's imagine a ludicrous scenario. A tow vehicle and trailer combination that is set up to the point that the load on the tow vehicle hitch can lift the front tires of the tow vehicle off the ground. In other words, the steering axle weight is reduced to zero if you were on a set of scales. Well, it certainly won't sway by my definition, but even a small force applied laterally to the side of the trailer will cause the trailer to pivot around its axle or axles, and that will easily spin the tow vehicle around its drive axle, as there is no lateral force being applied to the ground by the front tires to stabilize the system. So to reduce the capability of the trailer to influence the steering of the tow vehicle, weight must be shifted to the front axle of the tow vehicle with a properly adjusted weight distributing hitch. The only true way to know that your weight distributing hitch is set up properly is to get to a scale and weigh the axles of your tow vehicle with the trailer hooked up and unhooked. If you do not have more weight on the front axle when the weight distributing hitch is hooked than when the truck is weighed solo, you should keep adjusting until you do. At a minimum, you should have no less weight on the front axle when hitched than when unhitched. But even this may still be less stable than if more heavily front-loaded, as that is how the tow vehicle was designed to ride with no load, not while trying to control payload and a trailer. So using my rig as an example, and I have taken it to the scales to verify this, my trailer weighs about 9,500 pounds, loaded, with a tongue weight of nearly 1,200 pounds. And I did measure the tongue weight using the old beam and bathroom scale trick to confirm when I thought I needed a larger weight distributing hitch. Turns out I did. But that puts me right at about 12.6% tongue weight, which is in the recommended range of 12 to 15% required or recommended for limiting actual sway. With my weight distributing hitch connected, the truck at the front axle drops a ½ inch, and the rear drops 1.5 inches. Looking at the numbers from the weigh tickets, this worked out to be about an extra 740 pounds on the rear axle and an additional 240 pounds on the front when towing. This gives the truck's front end more available lateral force with which to resist the action of the trailer when buffeted by wind. And having towed in some serious crosswinds, I'm very happy to say that I am also very happy with how this combination handles. I believe that this is why the average fifth wheel trailer generally experiences less buffeting than the average travel trailer. The fifth wheel hitch is mounted with the load somewhat in front of the rear axle. This ensures that a portion of that pin weight is transferred to the front axle to improve lateral movement control. So what about the anti-sway setup? Well, this can help reduce the effects of buffeting by stiffening the joint between the trailer and the tow vehicle and absorbing some of the energy that the buffeting trailer is trying to transfer through the hitch to the tow vehicle. The looser your sway control, the more energy will be transferred to the tow vehicle. The tighter, the less. The issues with just relying on a tight sway control to handle all buffeting are, first, it will become more likely that your rig will dog track after turns because the hitch is so stiff the trailer won't necessarily want to return straight all the way. And second, the forces required to control the movement will be much larger as the moment around which the absorption forces act is very small for the sway control compared to the moment from the hitch to the front axle of the tow vehicle. So, to minimize the effects of wind buffeting pushing your tow vehicle around, I would suggest that you ensure you are loading the front of your tow vehicle correctly with your weight distributing hitch, and then that you adjust your sway control so the rig just returns to straight after sharp turns without having to overcorrect to straighten out the hitch. And now I know this probably has a chance to spark some discussion, and as always, I welcome your comments. Thank you for visiting my channel, and as always, of course, stay safe on the road.